stuck on you. I've been a fool too long. I guess it's time for me to.
Right. It was very painful. I've been through this with the guys. When one guy gets a hit record and no one else gets the hit record,
right.
I know what that feels like. And the press kept saying terrible things like, what's a guy like Lionel Richie doing in a band like the Commodores?
And Nicole, you've been through some turbulent times. We had drug abuse, wild child behavior. You said you got so much so fast that nothing really excited you. Entered rehab in 2003. How have you...
What has Lionel Richie finally confirmed at the age of 75? Is it about his music, his family, or something completely unexpected? Fans have been wondering for years, what's the truth behind the rumors? Could it be about his personal life or his amazing career? Why did he wait so long to share this? Let's find out what Lionel Richie has revealed that has everyone talking.
Mint tea. Well, we grew mint in the backyard. So my mother would always say, go down in the backyard and pick me a couple of those little loaves of leaves of mint. Bring them up, I'll put it in there.
Lionel Richie was born on June 20th, 1949, in a town called Tuskegee, Alabama. He grew up in a special place, the campus of Tuskegee Institute, where his family had strong connections. It was a quiet, peaceful place, and it played a big part in shaping who Lionel would become.
I was born and raised on a university campus, on Tuskegee University campus, so it was Black history every day. I'm living amongst some of those people that we are celebrating. And
as a young man, Lionel went to college, and that's where he started his journey in music. During his college years, he became part of a group called the Commodores. At first, the band just played cover songs. That means they played other people's music. But soon they became more than just a cover band. The Commodores turned into a very popular group, known for their funky sound and soulful music. The band made a lot of hits in the 1970s, like the famous songs Brick House and 3 Times a Lady. Lionel Richie was known for his smooth, beautiful ballads, especially songs like Easy. His voice made people feel the emotions in the songs. As a result, the Commodores became one of the most loved bands of that time. This was just the beginning of Lionel Richie's rise to fame. His talent, hard work, and dedication to music made him a star, and he would go on to have an amazing career.
I'm easy.
Lionel wrote some of their biggest hits, like Easy and 3 Times a Lady. These songs brought the group a lot of attention, but they also made people focus more on Richie. This caused problems within the band because some members felt left out. In 1977, the band released the funky hit Brick House, which became a big success. But after that, Lionel started writing softer, more romantic songs. His songs became their first #1 hit in 1978. Fans loved these sweet, emotional songs, and Lionel became the face of the band in the media. At the same time, Lionel began working on songs outside the band. He wrote hits like Lady for Kenny Rogers and Endless Love for Diana Ross.
Endless love.
These songs were massive successes, and Lionel became even more popular. People started seeing him as a solo artist rather than just a member of the Commodores. This new focus on Lionel made things tough for the other members. Reporters and reviewers often praised him more than the rest of the band. Some even questioned why a talented guy like Lionel was in a funk band. For Lionel, this kind of comment hurt deeply. It felt like people didn't respect the group as a whole, and the unity they once had started to fade. Eventually, the Commodores asked Lionel if he wanted to try a solo album. He agreed, and that one project turned into many. As Lionel's solo career took off, he moved further away from the band. This choice did not go over well with everyone in the group, and even today, there are some hard feelings about it.
It was very painful. I've been through this with the guys. When one guy gets a hit record and no one else gets the hit record, I know what that feels like. And the press kept saying terrible things like, what's a guy like Lionel Richie doing in a band like the Commodores?
William King, one of the original members, opened up about his feelings on this split in an interview in 1985. He shared that he wasn't upset just because Richie left. It was the way he left that hurt. King explained that Richie kept promising to come back to the group after each project he worked on outside of the Commodores. Richie first said he'd return after working with Kenny Rogers, then after working with Diana Ross, and finally after his own solo album. Each time the group was left waiting, unable to tour or make new music because promoters didn't want to book them without Richie.
Hard, and it's very difficult. So we didn't really think of it as being this long. It's just going to be a break for a minute to kind of get everybody's attitude down a little bit. It's just that right after that, all night long happened.
King used a strong example to explain just how big a deal it was. He asked, would they book the Beatles without Paul McCartney? To the Commodores, Richie was their McCartney, a crucial part of their sound and appeal. But instead of making a clean break or telling the band directly that he wasn't coming back, Richie kept them in limbo. However, Lionel Richie has shared his side of the story in a video called The Stab in the Heart. His explanation is emotional and heartfelt. Listening to him talk, it's clear that leaving the group wasn't an easy choice for him. In fact, it sounds like he didn't really want to leave at all. He didn't mean to leave them hanging. He really thought he would go back to the group. For fans of the Commodores, the breakup was sad. Many felt disappointed and even angry at Lionel for leaving. Some people tried to ignore his solo music or blame him for the split. Many people who blamed him before now feel differently after hearing what he had to say. Looking back, it's clear that Lionel Richie's talent brought great success to both the Commodores and his solo career. While the breakup was painful, it allowed him to share his music with the world in a bigger way. For fans, it's a chance to appreciate both the amazing work he did with the Commodores and the beautiful songs he created on his own. Richie faced criticism about his blackness in his early solo career. It might sound strange, but some people questioned if his music truly reflected his culture. Lionel, however, handled these challenges with grace and determination. He wanted to be recognized for his talent, not limited by labels or categories. When Lionel began his solo career, he created beautiful pop songs and emotional ballads that captured hearts worldwide. But not everyone was supportive. He recalls hearing comments like, "The music's not black enough," or even, "What's a black man doing writing a waltz?" These words stung deeply, especially because Lionel took great pride in his heritage and upbringing. Growing up in Tuskegee, Alabama, Lionel was surrounded by strong black role models. He lived on the campus of Tuskegee University, a historic black college that shaped his identity. His community was filled with inspiring individuals who broke barriers and set high standards. For example, William L. Dawson, a composer of the Negro Folk Symphony, visited his home. Another figure, Alfred Chief Anderson, helped train black pilots during World War II and even flew with Eleanor Roosevelt to prove that black people could pilot planes. With such a rich upbringing, Lionel found it shocking that people doubted his connection to his culture. "No one had ever questioned my blackness before," he shared. He knew who he was and felt proud of his roots. He also carried a powerful message from his community: failure is not an option. Despite the hurtful comments, Lionel stayed focused on his dreams. He refused to let others box him into a single genre. His vision was bigger than that. Lionel says, "I'm not trying to be the greatest black writer of all time. I'm trying to be the greatest writer of all time who happens to be black." Lionel understood that some critics didn't appreciate his music at the time, but he believed in creating timeless songs that would outlast trends. His determination to succeed and stay true to himself paved the way for a legendary career.
That's why I'm easy.
Now, 100 million albums sold later, the star, who's set to receive the Library of Congress's coveted Gershwin Prize for Popular Song and was just nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, says despite being tested, it worked. Says Richie, "I passed my goal a long time ago when someone said to me, 'You have 40 years of records that will survive you.'"
I realize that you're the one. And you're telling me it's time to say goodbye. What's inside?
Now let's talk about his personal life. Brenda met Lionel at college, and the pair started dating around the time he went on tour with his music group Commodores. The duo tied the knot a year after Brenda's graduation on October 18, 1975. Lionel admits that while he and Brenda did not agree much, the couple agreed on their daughter. A source close to the pair claims the college sweethearts were estranged for some time before they split for good after 18 years. Lionel filed for divorce in 1988 following an ugly altercation between himself, Brenda, and his mistress. Brenda found her crooner husband in the arms of a family friend, Diane Alexander, during the early hours of June 29, 1988. Brenda reportedly kicked her husband in the stomach area and beat his mistress. A neighbor alleges seeing the singer on frequent visits to the dancer. Police were called in after the commotion of screaming and breaking glass alerted neighbors. The scorned wife was charged with corporal injury to a spouse, resisting arrest, trespassing, vandalism, battery, and disturbing the peace. A witness of the arrest claims they had to push her down on her chest on the ground to get the cuffs on her. She kept screaming for Diane to help her. She kept screaming, "Diane, don't let them do this to me. Please, Diane." Lionel admitted that his first marriage to Brenda Harvey broke down because of his own mistakes. He confessed, "The best thing was I fell in love. The worst thing was I was still married." That love was for Diane Alexander, who eventually became his second wife.
Call it, you call it, I call it love. It's so clear.
The situation wasn't easy, and things between Brenda and Diane got heated. Lionel described one particularly wild moment as more screaming and hollering than fighting. Lionel said it was a time of deep embarrassment and disgrace. Looking back, Lionel admitted that it was mainly his fault. He said, "When you're young and foolish, you make decisions you think are right at the moment, but they end up hurting people." Lionel and Alexander are rumored to have met at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, where they both performed. She appeared in the video of his smash hit, Dancing on the Ceiling. The couple welcomed their son Miles on May 27, 1994, and married the following year. Lionel's second marriage to Diane also ended in divorce. He explained that he had promised to stay away from work after his first divorce. He wanted a simpler life with Diane. But one day he wandered back into the recording studio and everything changed. "I knew I was in trouble when I started making music again," Lionel admitted. His passion for music is a part of who he is, but it came at a cost in his personal life. When asked if he would have stayed with Brenda and avoided the pain of divorce, Lionel said, "If I could control it, yes. But when you're young, foolish, and a hopeless romantic, it's hard to make the right choices."
You really care.
Lionel's charm and talent have always made him popular with women. When asked how he handled this attention, he joked about his younger days, saying, "When you're 19, the answer is, see me after the show." But now at 60, he said with a laugh, "You just smile and say, 'How are you?'" When pressed to estimate how many women had admired him, Lionel cleverly avoided giving a number, saying, "I'm a choir boy who just tries to help as many women as I can." His humor lightened the subject, but it's clear that dealing with fame wasn't always easy. Unlike many musicians, Lionel never got caught up in drugs. He shared a funny story about spending an evening with reggae legend Bob Marley. Bob invited Lionel to a room filled with smoke, and Lionel quickly realized the Alabama cigarettes he was used to were nothing compared to what Bob had. That night, Lionel learned that drugs weren't for him. He said, "I need to be in control at all times, and I couldn't perform if I wasn't." Staying clean helped him focus on his music and career. In 2006, Lionel performed a concert in Libya that caused a lot of controversy. He had been invited by the country's leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who had recently tried to improve his country's image by giving up weapons of mass destruction.
I'm not in power anymore.
So you are not the leader of your country?
إذا أنت ما تقودش البلد.
قائد الثورة مش قائد البلد.
I am the leader of the revolution, not the leader of the country.
Many people criticized Richie for agreeing to perform in a country with such a bad reputation for human rights. The concert took place in Libya, 20 years after the U.S. bombing of the country in 1986. Richie walked on stage in front of a cheering crowd and greeted them with, "Hello, Libya." He seemed to believe he was helping bring peace to the country, but his performance raised serious questions about whether it was right to perform for a dictator. Richie's visit to Libya in 2006 was part of a larger trend of famous musicians performing for powerful leaders in secret. these performances were often not talked about, and the stars were paid a lot of money for them. For example, Richie was paid $5 million for his concert in Libya. The problem, however, was that by performing for the Gaddafis, Richie gave them a sense of legitimacy. He became part of their effort to make the world see them as normal people, not just cruel dictators. By performing for Gaddafi, Richie was not just doing a concert, he was getting involved in a political situation that many people saw as wrong. For many Libyans, this concert was a bitter reminder of how their country was controlled by a harsh ruler. While some young Libyans enjoyed American culture as a way to escape their country's problems, others saw Richie's visit as a betrayal. The performance sent a message that Richie was supporting the very people who had been oppressing them. It's easy to understand why Richie took the gig. He was offered a lot of money, and at the time, many people around the world were uncertain about who the bad guys really were. But Richie wasn't just a businessman, he was an artist. In the end, Richie's concert in Libya wasn't just about singing songs. It was about the choices that stars make and the impact those choices can have. While he may have thought he was just performing for a peaceful event, the truth is that by performing for Gaddafi, he helped give the dictator a sense of legitimacy, something that many people in Libya couldn't accept.
And I give my dad the credit, you know. My biggest hero was my father.
In 1990, Lionel Richie lost his father, Lionel Richie Sr., at the age of 75. This was a big blow for Lionel because his dad was his hero. The loss hit him hard, and he described it as a massive depression that lasted for 4 years. Lionel shared in an interview with Lorraine Kelly in 2018 that after his father passed away, he went through a very tough time. He said, "My father was ill, and I went through I won't say a depression, a massive depression, because, you know, my dad was my hero." It was clear that losing his dad had a huge impact on him. During this time, Lionel struggled to find his way and felt lost. He found it hard to deal with the grief, and it wasn't until the birth of his second child, Miles, that he started to feel better. He explained that having his son and seeing his daughter, Nicole Richie, made him realize that he had a family who looked up to him. "It was something about the birth of my kid," Lionel said. "Miles came along, and Nicole was already there, and I realized I had a group of people that were kind of looking up to me to be the head of the house."
Realized what he was going through, and he didn't make any effort to tell us what they were going through as black men and women in America and in the...
Around the same time, Lionel realized it was time to return to his music career. He had taken a break since 1986, but his children didn't really know what he did for a living. So he decided to get back into making music and show his kids what he was passionate about. "Let's go back and prove to the kids what I do," he thought. Lionel's father had lived a full life and didn't pass away suddenly, which was a comfort to him. But the pain of his father's death was still something Lionel carried with him for years.
That's why I'm easy.
Lionel had a close call to a nervous breakdown after nearly losing his voice. He recalls how undergoing multiple throat surgeries nearly pushed him to the brink. "Lionel, I'll pass on exactly what my father said to me. Aptitude plus attitude determines altitude," he tells people. "If you happen to have both, sky's the limit. But if you're only blessed with one, have the right attitude because people will love to have you around." Richie says he's seen his share of dark days. While battling a mysterious illness affecting his throat during the height of his solo career, Richie recalls feeling overwhelmed. "About as close as you ever would have come to a nervous breakdown," says the star of that trying time. In the early 90s, Richie underwent 4 separate surgeries to address an unknown condition impacting his throat. "You don't want anybody fooling around down there. This is your identity," he says of nervousness surrounding the procedures, adding, "I never really thought that it would end." Richie, who was also in the midst of a difficult divorce from his first wife, Brenda Harvey, and caring for his ailing father, was diagnosed with diet-induced acid reflux that was affecting the area. He went on to recover and hasn't suffered since, but Richie still recalls a chance encounter with a fan during that difficult time that helped get him through. One day while on the beach in Jamaica, he says an elderly black man pulled him aside. He said, "You must survive because you are our beacon of hope," the star says. "If you make it, we know we can make it. If you accomplish, we know we can accomplish." Upon hearing that he broke down and cried, Richie faced another controversy when he was sued for plagiarism by two songwriters. At that time, Richie was on top of the music world. He had left his band, the Commodores, and launched a successful solo career. His albums, Lionel Richie and Can't Slow Down, made him a superstar. In 1986, Richie released another hit album, Dancing on the Ceiling. His music was loved by millions, but that year, things took a turn for the worse.
Stuck on you. I've been a fool too long. I guess it's time for me.
Two songwriters, Gene Thompson and Tracy Singleton, filed a lawsuit against Richie. They claimed that several of Richie's songs were copied from their own music. They said that Richie's hit songs, Stuck on You, Deep River Woman, and Selah, were too similar to two songs they wrote in 1979 called Somebody's Got to Love Her and You and Me. Thompson and Singleton demanded $3 million in damages from Richie, arguing that he had stolen their music. The first song they said was copied was Stuck on You, a country song Richie had released. They also claimed Deep River Woman and Selah were too similar to their own songs. Richie, however, fought back. He and his team believed the lawsuit had no merit. In 1987, the judge agreed. The judge ruled that Thompson and Singleton's case wasn't strong enough. He said the songs didn't sound alike and threw out the case. To make matters worse for the songwriters, the judge also ordered them to pay Richie's legal fees, which were about $34,000 at the time. But the story didn't end there. Thompson and Singleton didn't give up. They appealed to a higher court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Unfortunately for Richie, the appeals court decided that the case had been dismissed too early. They sent the case back for another round of legal battles. This lawsuit became a dark mark in Richie's career, despite his many successes. Although the case didn't result in any major legal consequences for him, it was a long and stressful process.
Nicole, you've been through some turbulent times. We had drug abuse, wild child behavior. You said you got so much so fast that nothing really excited you. Entered rehab in 2003.
Now let's talk about his daughter. When Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton first started their reality TV show, The Simple Life, in 2003, their parents were not sure it was a good idea. El Richie was especially worried. He thought the show, which made them live on a farm without any luxuries, wasn't something good for his daughter. Lionel didn't understand why Nicole was doing something so unusual. He would watch them doing silly things like driving backward and ask, "What are you guys doing?" He didn't like the idea at first and warned her not to go ahead with it. However, over time, Lionel realized he was wrong. He admitted that the show turned out to be a huge success. It helped Nicole's career grow and changed reality TV forever. The show made Nicole and Paris more famous, even though they already came from well-known families. It also opened the door for other reality TV shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Now, 20 years later, Nicole and Paris came back together for a new show called Paris and Nicole, The Encore. In this new show, they try to make an opera. Their parents are excited to see what happens next. Even though they joke about still being scared of their daughter's energy, they are proud of what they've achieved.